Hello all, this is Dr. T.P. Lakshmi working as an assistant professor in the Department of Computer Science and Engineering. Previous two videos, what we seen is the first video I explained about what is distributed system, why this is required and what are the issues that are arising in the distributed system. Second video, it covers the challenges of designing the distributed system. So totally we have 7 challenges and we seen how we are going to be overcome these challenges in the designing the distributed system. This is the third video of the distributed system. Here it covers the system model. Actually, system model is the one which is going to be tell about what are the components are required, how we need to be gather the component, how the components are going to be interacting. So like that it's going to be covered. So we have two models. One is architectural model and another one is fundamental model. Today's session is going to be covered about the architectural model. First one is system model. System model is the one I told you that it's going to be illustrate and describe the common properties and the design choices for distributed systems in a single descriptive model. So this is the one which is going to be tell about what are the common properties are available and what are the design choices are available for designing the distributed system. So we have two types of model. One is architectural model and another one is the fundamental model. Okay, so this session is going to be covered about the architectural model. Okay, so architectural model. What is the architectural model and the distributed system? It's going to be tell about what are the components of the distributed system and how we are going to be place the component in the distributed system. And what is the interactions, how the components are going to be interact between, how the communication is going to be happen between the components of the distributed system. Okay, so we'll see one by one. So first is going to be tell about the placement of the components across the networks over the computer. So this is a distributed system. We couldn't say that the system is going to be connected only which is placed in the single room. No, not like that. The distributed system is the system is going to be connected to the overall network. So overall the world, the system is going to be connected. That is what the distributed system. Okay. So the first one, how we going to be place the components across the networks. That is the first one. Next thing is going to be cover the interrelationship between the components. These are the two main things that we are going to be designed with the help of the architectural model. The next one is, it's going to be determine the distributor of the data. Okay, the first one is, it's going to be tell about how we are going to be place the component of the distributed systems over all the networks. Second one is, what is the interrelationship between the, what is the interrelationship between the components. Second one, how they are going to be distribute the data. Okay, distribution of the data, or we can say that distribution of the resources. Okay, and the computational task among the physical nodes over the system. And also, it's going to be evaluate the performance, reliability, scalability and the other properties of the distributed systems. Already we seen performance, scalability, reliability is the one without any loss or without any disturb or without any intervention. The message needs to be passed in between the client and the server. That is what reliable connection. Okay. So along with that, it's going to be evaluate the remaining properties of the distributed system also. The example here it is client server and peer-to-peer server. These are the two examples of the architectural model. Already I told you that this will be the architectural model is nothing but the individual component distribution over the networks, and the next one, you should make the systems which will be reliable, manageable and adaptable, and that should be cost effective. We take care of this one also. Next one is, we need to be classify the process. How we need to be classifying the distributed system processes. Either it may be a client server process or peer-to-peer process. Okay. Now we'll see one by one what are the models which is going to be covered in the architectural model. First one is software layers. What are the software layers which is available in the architectural system model? And next one is system architectures. Third one is the variations on the client server model. We have a variety of model. One, it may be a client server model or peer to peer or many server, that is multiple server model. We have a variety of client server model. And the next one is what are the interfaces and the objects that's going to be covered in the architectural system model. And the last one is the design requirements for the distributed architecture. So these are the topics that we are going to be covered in the architectural system model. The first module is the software layer. The software architecture refers to the services offered and the requested between the processes located in the same or a different computers. So this architecture is going to be referred what are the services which is going to be offered, either the systems are connected in the same network or the different network. Okay. So here what are the things it's going to be covered? Okay, the first one is it's going to be tell about the structuring of the software layers or the modules. Okay, what are the software modules which is going to be, how we are going to be structured it, and what are the services which is going to be provided or offered to the client as well as the server. Okay, so the next one is, we'll see about the distributed service over here. What do you mean by distributed service? It can be provided by one or more server processes. Always in the distributed system, it's not only with the help of one server. We are using more than one server. So it's going to be tell about the services going to be offered or provided by one or more server processes and interacting with each other. How they are going to be interact with each other. Okay, so it's going to be tell about how the one or more services are going to be interact with each other and the server and the client interaction also. The client with the client process also to maintain the consistent view of the service resources. Example here they are taking the network time protocol, how it is going to be used or how it is going to be helpful with the help of the sharing of the resources in between the client and the server. Okay. In the layered view of the system, each layer offer one services. Okay, the bottom layer it will be a programming hardware as well as the software, and the middle one will be the middleware, and the upper one will be the applications. There will be the layered architecture of the software layer. So the the down one will be the combination of the hardware as well as the software, that we can call it as the platform. Okay, both hardware and the software we can call it as this platform, and the middle one will be the middleware, which is useful for interactions between the operating system, or we can say that it is useful for interacting between the platform and the application as well as the services which is going to be offered. Okay. Now we'll see about the platform. This is the lowest layer, right? Now we see in the layered architecture, the platform is the lowest layer, which is a combination of hardware as well as the software layers. Okay, we'll see some examples of this combination of hardware and the software layers. Suppose this one, see this example, we can take an Intel x86 as well as the Windows. This is a software, okay, OS, and this is an OS, as well as this is also OS. And if we go for the software, this is the combination of the hardware and the software. Some examples of the hardware and the software layers. Okay, and the lowest layer always which is provide the services to the higher layer. Okay, so this will be worked from the top to bottom. That means we see that the down one will be the platform, and the next one will be the middleware, and the next higher layer is application. So how the services are going to be offered? So the lower layer, that is a platform, which is going to be offered the services to the highest layer, that is a middleware. Okay, like that the services will be provided. Okay, and here the what are the useful services which is going to be provided with the help of the middleware. Middleware, I already explained you what is the middleware, how it is going to be work. And I explained, I told you that CoreBuy is one of the middleware, and we have another middleware also, that is a Java RMI. RMI is a remote method invocation, Java remote method invocation, and the DCOM, distributed common object model. So these are all the another types of middlewares. Okay. So the first one is system model. Okay, system model we see in the layered architecture. Okay, in that layered architecture, bottom will be the platform and the middle one will be the middleware, and the upper one will consist of an applications or the services which is going to be offered. So always the lower layer will provide the services to the upper layer which is present. Okay, and we seen some types of middleware also, CORBA, RMI, Java RMI and DCOM. So these are all the types of middleware system architectures. Okay, now we'll see what are the system architectures are available. Okay, so this is the division of responsibilities between the system components and the client, or we can say that it is a responsible of the system component, okay, and the placement of the system components over the network. Okay, so we have types of model. One is client server model, and services provided by the multiple servers, and next one is proxy servers and the cache, and the last one is peer processes. We will see one by one now. First one is client server model. What do you mean by client? Okay, the client is nothing but the user who is going to be send the request to the server. Okay, so either we can say either a client or a user. Okay, the user only the client who is going to be sending any request to the server. For example, with the help of a web browser. Okay, so you can take a web browser, or we can take a Google. Okay, search engine. Take a search engine as a Google. Okay, what you are doing with a Google search engine? You are typing something. Whatever you want to search it, you are typing that in the HTTP, that URL you are typing, right? That is what, where it is going then, it is moving on to the server. Okay, whatever the client is typing, that is moving on to the server. That means after I am typing, I am getting the end, I am just click the enter button, right? So we are getting the information. That means the server searches that information and give the response. What are the response which is available to the particular request that is received by the client. Okay, suppose sometimes we'll get a message like 404 error found. Have you heard about this 404 error found? That means that requested message which is not available in the server. So in that cases we will say that it is a 404 error found. Okay. Now, so we'll say what is who is server and who is the client. That the client is the one which is going to be send the request to the server, and the server, who is the server which is going to be send the response to the client, particular client. Okay, that should be with the help of the simple or a single request reply protocol. With the help of this protocol only, the client and the server are communicating with the help of the middleware, RPC as well as the RMI or CORBA, any middlewares you can use. Okay. Now I told you that the client is going to be send the request message to the server by asking some service. Okay, I need the service though, so they are requesting some services to the server. Okay, and if it is found, it will be send the result back, or else it will be send the error code, that is the 404 error found. Sometimes, okay, sometimes, for example, this is the client and this is the server. Okay, requesting some information. This server, that information is not available. Okay, what the server will do? That server is requesting another server. Whether that information is available in the another server or not. In that cases, this server is acts like a client. Okay, that is what they are mentioning. The server can itself request services from the other server. In that cases, the server itself acts like a client. These are all the clients. Okay, and these are all the clients. So the clients are, this is the server. In between what it is, this is the server. The clients are invoking the request to the server. Okay, all the clients are invoking the request to the server. Okay, and the server is sending the result back to the particular client, what result they are requesting. Okay, this is what the client server process. Next one is services provided by the multiple service. I think so you remember that the previous video I explained that multiple service. The distributed system is always a multiple services. Why? Because the performance should not slow down. Okay. So with the help of multiple server, we are going to be retrieved. The client is instead of one server, previous diagram we seen that only one server in the middle, 3 clients were requesting the message. Now instead of one server, the same information is going to be back up with a multiple server, and the client are going to be contact with any server which is free. Okay, that is what multiple server. So what is the use of this one? It will improve the performance as well as it will increase the reliability by the replication of the data which is kept in the server. See here. So this is client and these two are client, this is server. So we have a multiple servers. All the servers we are maintaining the replicated copies. There is no different information. All the way, if you are using 100 servers also for that particular application, okay, all the servers should maintain the same information. Okay, that is what services provided by the multiple server. See here in this example, this server previously the two servers are the 2 clients are contact with a single server. Then now one server is requesting that with one client is requesting one server and another one is going to the another server. So in that cases we will get the result as soon as possible. What do you mean by proxy server? The proxy server is a one which is not actually a server but it acts like a server. Okay, that means with the help of this proxy server we can increase the availability, okay, and the performance of the services which is offered by the server. Okay, this is the main use of using this proxy server is we need to reduce the workload on the network as well as the web server. That means, for example, if we have a 3 servers, we see in the previous example we seen 3 servers, right? So in that cases the 3 server itself getting the more workload. Okay, in that cases we couldn't increase the one more server immediately. Okay, if we want to keep one more server, that cost will be high. Okay, in that cases temporarily we are keeping one server, that is a proxy server, okay, to reduce the workload of the particular web server as well as the network. That is what the proxy server. Okay, that means it provides the copies of the replication of the server which is already available, or the resources just managed by the other servers. Okay, it's going to be some replicas that are going to be keep it in one system that is acts like a proxy server to reduce the workload of the servers. Next, this is a cache. Okay, what do you mean by the cache? The cache is the storage flexibility of which is recently used data objects. So what are the data objects which is recently stored that will be in the cache? Okay, suppose if the web servers that provide the shared cache of the web resources for the particular client machines at any location, okay, they need to check it whether the up-to-date information which is available on the cache or not. The server needs to be check always the up-to-date information which is available or not. If it is not available, then the up-to-date information will be stored in the particular cache. That is a recently stored information. Okay. So this is a use. What is the use of this one? It will be increase the availability as well as the performance. Again, it is going to be reduce the load of the server and the net.
What is a proxy server? So that is the topic of this video. Now, a proxy server is a server that retrieves data out on the internet, such as a web page, on behalf of a user. So, for example, normally when a computer wants to view a web page out on the internet, you would just open up a web browser and then type in the address and retrieve that web page from its web server. Now, when you go through a proxy server, the proxy server will act like a middleman and will retrieve that web page for you. So now when you want to go to a website, the proxy server receives the request from your computer, and the proxy server will directly retrieve the web page on your behalf and then send it to your computer. So the question is, why would you want to use a proxy server? Well, a proxy has several benefits, and one benefit is privacy. because it allows you to surf the internet anonymously, because it hides your IP address. Because without using a proxy, and when you visit a website, your public IP address is visible, so certain people can know which websites you're visiting. But when you use a proxy, your IP address becomes invisible, because as the proxy server is retrieving the web page for you, only the IP address of the proxy server can be seen viewing the web page. So your IP address stops here, and then the proxy IP does the rest of the work. And another benefit of using a proxy server is speed. So for example, if a company uses a proxy server, and whenever a user wants to retrieve a web page, the proxy server will retrieve the web page from the internet on behalf of the user, and then it'll store that web page into a centralized cache database. So if another user on a different computer goes to a web page that has been stored in the proxy database, the proxy server doesn't have to go out on the internet to retrieve the web page. It can simply retrieve it from its database and then send it to the user. So this makes web page retrieval much faster. And another benefit of this is that it saves bandwidth, because a proxy server reduces the need to go out on the internet to retrieve data because it already has that data stored in its database. And another benefit of a proxy is activity logging. Now, a lot of companies will use a proxy to keep track of what websites their employees are looking at. So when a company's employees are surfing the internet, the proxy will keep a record of what websites they're visiting and how long they were on those websites. And in addition, a company can also configure the proxy to block certain websites to keep their employees from visiting them. Now, there's one notable thing that a proxy server can't do, and that is encrypt data as you surf the internet. And when data is not encrypted, the data can be intercepted by hackers, ISPs, or governments with the proper equipment. So this is where a VPN comes in. A VPN, or virtual private network, not only hides your IP address, but it also encrypts the data that's being transferred between your computer and the internet. So any activity that you do on the internet, such as viewing web pages or transferring files, the data is encrypted and kept private when using a VPN, and no logging is involved. A VPN provides a dedicated secure tunnel between 2 points.
Next one is peer-to-peer process. Okay, what do you mean by peer-to-peer process? See, this peer-to-peer process, we couldn't say that this is a client and this is a server. Okay, each system which is connected to that network will be acts like a server as well as the client. Okay, we'll see that example. See here, this is connected with the 4 systems. Okay, all are sharing their information. We couldn't say that in this case this is a client and this is a server. It acts like, see, if for example, if this is requesting some message to this system, that time this will be the client. Okay, if this system is requesting some message to this system, then that time it will be acts like a server. So in this peer-to-peer process networks, all the system will be work like both server as well as the client. Variations on the client-server model. This is a third module, architectural model. Okay. What are the variations actually in the client-server model? For the it should be depends upon the various reasons. One is the use of a mobile code and the mobile agent. Okay, this is the first reason that we are using the variations on the client-server model. That is the use of the mobile code and the mobile agent. Next one is the user's need for the low-cost computers with limited hardware resources. Okay, that means the user need a system with a less cost with limited hardware facilities. Okay, that is another reason. The first reason is use of mobile code and the mobile agent. The second reason is there will be the system with the low cost and with the minimum hardware facility. And the third one is the requirement to add and remove the mobile devices in a convenient manner. So these are the reasons that we have the variations on the client server model. So these are the things that we are going to be covering now. The first one is mobile core, next one is mobile agent, third one is network computers, fourth one is thin clients, and the last one is mobile devices and the spontaneous networking. So now we'll see one by one what is it. First one is mobile code. This one I already explained in the previous video. What is a mobile app, Java applet, and how this is going to be run. Okay, that means the server, the client is going to be send the requested code to the server. Then after getting response from the server side, then the client is going to be download the code, and that should be run on the client side or client system only with the interactions with the applet. That is what the mobile code. See here, what is this one? This is the one, that is the first one. The client is sending the request result and downloading of the applet code. Okay, so the client is sending the request and the web server is provide the response of the particular applet code. Now this is the first step. Then what will be the next step? The client should download this one. Download this applet code. Okay, download the browser that runs there. Okay, after downloaded, what it should do? It will be run on the client side itself. The code should be run on the client side itself, and that should be with the interaction of the applet. Okay, this is what this is steps to the client interacts with the applet code. So this is the first one, that is a mobile code. Okay, we'll see the next one. We'll see first one is advantage, that the remote invocations are replaced by the local ones. That means here we have a good interactive responses. Why? Because the mobile code is only after it downloaded from the server, the code is going to be run on this client side only, right? So that we'll get a good response time. That means the response times will be faster. When if we run on the server side, means it will be somewhat slower. Okay, that is the main advantage here. And again, the one more thing, it won't be any delay, right? Why? Because we are running on this client side only. The disadvantage is we need to be take care of the security threat while downloading the code from the server. Okay, that is the one we need to be take care of. The next one is mobile agent. Okay, mobile agent. The name itself you can know that what is mobile agent. Okay, so then a mobile agent is the one previously we seen the client and as well as the server that's going to be get the code from the server, right? Now we are using an agent in between here. So with the help of this agent only, the response is request and the response whatever the client needs to be downloaded from the server side with the help of this mobile agent. So the main thing is we can reduce the communication load. The cost of the communication cost will be reduced. Why? Because we are using an agent in between. So the main advantage of using this one is reduce the communication cost and the time by replacing the remote method invocation with the local ones. And here the disadvantages, it will be used only for the limited applicability. We couldn't use for all the applications. There will be a limited applicability. And again we need to be take care of the security threats. So are the systems while downloading the code. Next one is network computers. Okay, what do you mean by network computers? Okay, now whatever we did in the same thing, the first one, mobile code, everything is same. But the thing is, we need to be save the code should be run on the client side only. But after executing that one, again the result will be stored back to the server. That is what the network computers. Okay, so here we are saving with a remote location, not a local users. That means the client are not going to be stored. Only the server needs to be stored the result. Okay, the running execution everything on the client side, but the result is going to be served on the server side. So what is the advantage of using here? The advantage is there is no need of maintaining the record, and because the client is not going to be save the file. Okay, only the server is going to be take care of the managing the files which is stored. See here, this is the one. So these are all the networks which is connected. These are all the clients which is connected to the networks, and these are all the servers. Okay, once it downloaded this requested code, okay, it's going to be run on the client side. So it will be executed this client side only. After executing again, it will be stored in the server. Okay, that is what network compute. Yeah. What is the advantage? I told you that we are doing everything on the server side, only the execution is on the client side. So the main thing is we are not going to put effort for the software management or the administration. Everything should be taken care of by the server side itself. Next one is thin clients. What do you mean by thin client? Okay, thin client, it's same like the first one, mobile code. The only difference is the client is going to be run the code on the server side only, not on the client side. Okay, so the client needs to be run the code on the server side in parallel for the several clients. Several clients can run their code on the server. Okay, that is what thin client. It won't be run on the user interface. See here, this is a client and this is the application code. So that's going to be take here. Whatever the client is requesting, that code will be run on the server side itself, and the result will be back to the client. This is what thin client. The advantage of using this one is we are using the same network computer, right? For downloading as well as the running. Running the code as well as the downloading, we are using the same system only, that is a server. We are using the same system for downloading the code as well as the execution. So it will be good in, the responsive time will be good. The disadvantage is we have an high latencies. That means if it is a graphical user interface, it may take more time. We couldn't download that much faster if it is a highly interactive graphical applications. Next one is mobile devices and the spontaneous networking. Okay, that you know mobile devices. Mobile devices, you people know what is mobile devices. We are all using nowadays mobile devices. Instead of system, we are not, whatever we are doing in the laptops, now we are doing everything in the mobile devices itself. Then spontaneous networks. Spontaneous networks is the integration of the mobile devices with the other devices. That is the integration of mobile device with the other devices. For example, if you are integrating your mobile devices with your computer, it comes under the spontaneous. Comes under the spontaneous. So we'll see the example of this. This is one example of spontaneous networking, which is in the hotel. Okay, see here, this is a musical service that hotel is providing, and alarm service, camera, PDA, guest devices, laptop, TV, discovery services, internet, everything they are providing. So all the services which is going to be connected, one mobile devices which is going to be, the mobile device is going to be connected with the other devices, we can call it as a spontaneous networking. What's the advantages? Is we have an easy connection. We have an easy connections to the local network, and we can integrate also easily. Integrate the services also very easily. But the disadvantage is hotel. Okay, I see an example of spontaneous networking, right? So in that cases, if you go out of that hotel, you won't get the service. Right? That is what they're telling about the limited connectivity. Okay. The next one is we are having only the less security. Here also the security should be high, so that will be a disadvantage in security also. And the fourth module in this is interfaces and the objects. What do you mean by the interfaces? The set of functions which is available is called as an interfaces, and the languages what we are going to be used for the middleware is we are using the object-oriented languages, C, C++, Java we are using in the middleware. For example, if you go for RMA middleware, you are using the Java. Okay, Corba we can use for either Java or C language. The design requirements on the distributed architectures. It should include the four. One is performance issues, next one is quality of services, using of caching and the replication, and the fourth one is dependability issues. Now we'll see one by. First one is performance issues. In the performance issues, the first one comes in the responsiveness, throughput, and the balancing of the computational load. Okay, what do you mean by responsiveness? How fast we are getting the response from the server. That is what comes under the speed of the remote invocation. Okay, it will be depends upon the load and the performance of the server also. If the server is loaded very lightly, we'll get the fast response, or we'll get the slow response. Okay, and the delays also depends upon the delays in the software components also. Depends upon, for that it will use the responsiveness. Next one is throughput. Throughput is the rate at which the computational work is done. Okay, it is the rate in which when the computation, how long it takes to complete the work. Okay. Next one is balancing. Okay. For example, the applets removes the load from the server. Well, in that time, how long it is balancing? Okay. If it is going to be removed from the server, the connection should not be cut. I mean, the connectivity should be there between the client and the server. How it is balancing the load. Okay. This all comes under the performance issues. Next one is reliability. Reliability, I told you that without any intervention, that connection should be there. It is also in case of responsiveness, performance, adaptability, and the resources availability. Okay. So the quality of service will be comes under, first one is reliability, second is performance. These are the metrics which is going to be take care of the quality of the services. And the adaptability and the resource availability. Reliability, you know that there should not be any break in between the communication between the client and the server. And the performance should be taken care of. Adaptability, whatever the services that we are offering from the server, that should be adaptable to any type of platforms. And it should be adapted to the particular environment or the resources. Next, resource availability should be there always. Next one is use of caching and the replication. So caching, I already told you that the caching copies will be stored the latest information, that is up-to-date information, which is not available in the cache. Then what the web caching protocol will do. Okay, first it will be search. Proxy server will be searched to the client from the web server. If it is not available, then the web server will be up-to-date information will be stored in the cache. Okay, whenever it is the client is requesting, they will take it from the cache and send the response to the server. The last one is dependability issues. The dependable application should continue to the function correctly in the presence of the faults in the hardware, either hardware, software, or networks. Okay. So what are the attributes which is going to be covered? It's going to be covered availability, reliability, replication, safety, integrity, and maintainability. So these are the attributes which is going to be covered. Availability, readiness of the services. Whatever the client is requesting, whatever services the client is requesting from the server, okay, the service should be available. Okay, that is what comes under the availability. Okay, then the next one is the reliability. Reliability, I told you that the probability that a device will perform with intended function during the specific period of a time without any interruption. Okay. Next, replication. So obviously in the distributed system we have a replicated data which is going to be stored in the multiple server. we need to be retransmission of messages, even if it does not reach the client or the server, that needs to be retransmit again. Next one is safety. Absence of the incorrect behavior. Okay, that means we need to check the behavior of the components always. If any cases anywhere, if you are seeing the absence of the behavior of the components, it will be move on to the safety. Okay, we need to check the safetiness of the components always in the distributed system. Next is integrity. Okay, integrity in the sense absence of the improper system alterations. That is, we need to alter the system, distributed system properties or any components. Okay, that we need to be covered in. So without the absence of the improper system alterations, if I am not altering the systems regularly, then what will the systems do? For example, take the banking technology. Okay, I designed this distributed system for the banking system applications. Okay, I need to check the I need to check the system alterations frequently. Okay, if I am not checking, what will be happen? The absence of system alterations, what will happen? It will be needs to fall into the failure. Okay, so that is what integrity. Next one is maintainability. This is maintainability. Always you should know when the maintainability should take care of. Either you want to undergo modifications or repairs. Okay, I want to do for a modifications of the already designed system, or I want to repair the system. For that I will go for the maintainability. Okay, this will be in case of correct defects and meeting the new requirements. I told you, right, the banking technology. So one bank, they are having high-ended features in a distributed system. The other banking sectors, they don't have an high-ended features. So they need to go for meet the new requirements, like the bank which is already having the high-ended features. So the remaining banks will also go for the new requirements meet. They should use this one.